The Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
Full Melt.
Well, tonight, Nashville could decide whether marijuana should be decriminalized.
The proposed ordinance would replace jail time with a fine for people found with less than half an ounce of pot. This is Brett Martin, is live at the Metro Council chambers tonight with more on what's at stake tonight. Brett?
That's right, Bob and Ann. The city of Nashville could become the first city in the state to lessen the penalty for small amounts of marijuana. Nashville and Memphis are both considering this bill, allowing officers to give a person that $50 fine and community service rather than jail time if they're found with less than a half ounce of pot. The bill was proposed by Dave Rosenberg, and supporters say it could be a way to help reform the justice system and alleviate jail overcrowdedness. The Tennessee Cannabis Coalition says it's a step in the right direction for statewide decriminalization.
I think we need to be looking at decriminalization in the cities. I think that the progression of this is probably going to go similar to how alcohol prohibition ended. We've been systematically misled on cannabis for decades, so it's not surprising that a lot of the older generation in the legislature simply doesn't have the facts when it comes to cannabis.
Now, the coalition says other cities like Chattanooga and Knoxville could be the next to take up the issue. And coming up at 5, I talked with a council member who says that the city may be going down a road with a lot bigger issues. Reporting live in downtown, Brett Martin, News 2.
All right, Brett, thanks for that report.
The Full Melt Show.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
This is the Full Melt.
Give me a break. The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. TheFullMelt.com.
Hey, welcome. If you want to participate on the show tonight, you want to call in, be on the program, talk about cannabis, 248-278-8067. 248-278-8067. I'm Steve Green, your host. The Mad Blaster is not with us this week. Not sure when the Mad Blaster may be back. The Mad Blaster is MIA. I think he's having some problems, and when he gets those problems adjusted out, maybe he'll be back. Looking forward to that. So, yesterday we were talking all about this sad state of affairs in Michigan. I'm not going to be a naysayer, though. I mean, although I'm going to be truthful about this is still a state marijuana program run by the state police. That's basically what this is going to amount to. The state police are going to be in charge of, and not just the state police, but I think the police in Michigan, mostly the state police, and certainly the council that's going to be created by the governor, going to be in charge of marijuana in Michigan when it comes to medical use. And you have to realize that this is going to be sold, packaged, marketed from the perspective of the police. Not from the perspective of what patients are getting, not from the perspective of how useful that medicine may or may not be, not from the perspective of we know anything about cannabis and its use in a medical realm, from the perspective of we don't want people who are growing cannabis under the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act for patients to have anything to do with this program. They've been pissed off that there have been caregivers allowed to have up to 72 plants at a time growing for patients. The police have just been pissed. Too bad, you jackbooted thugs, because that's what you are. Go back home. You might be beginning to run this program, but I'm telling you, your just say no mentality is going to be buried with the dead trash. So, just what that lady said there at the beginning, the people that are in Nashville now decriminalizing because their jails are overcrowded. And they've been misled, as you heard her say. They understand they've been misled by the government on cannabis for decades. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I'm just evidencing it for you in popular culture and daily events. news. And, this trend that's beginning to take shape, it's a trend about licensing. And what they're doing, see, I don't see any alcohol distributors in the state of Michigan, or really anywhere else in the country for that matter, being run by armored trucks, right? Nobody's saying that the alcohol that's being made by the alcohol companies and then sold in alcohol stores needs to be transported between the place that it was manufactured and the place that it was packaged and the place that it was distributed or tested or marketed in some other way, packaged, labeled, or shelved, put on the store shelf, needs to be transported between these locations by armed guard transport, basically an armored truck. They want the Brinks truck rolling up and delivering your cannabis from the grow to whichever place it's going to in all the stages up until the one that it gets on the shelf. And if there's medical cannabis that is anything less than $20 a gram on that shelf, the day that it opens up, anywhere across the state, I will eat my hat. I will go on television and literally eat my hat. But that's not going to happen, you see, because there's no way that even with a 1,500 plant grow that any of these guys are making cannabis at that level of expense with a 3% excise tax. That means a 3% tax on the gross sale of cannabis from one grower to, say, the processor. Or I don't even know if the processor has to pay for this. I don't even know how that's going to work. Like, does the grower get his money from the processor, or does the grower get his money from the dispensary? Where's the grower getting his money? Who's buying the cannabis from the grower? Is it the testing facility? Is it the processor? Is it the dispensary? How are they getting their money? You see, there's a lot of question marks here that need to be answered, but there's one answer that is stunningly, glaringly apparent. And that's that each one of these guys are going to get paid handsomely along the way for what it is they're doing, because they're all licensed by the state and had to jump through big hoops and have big financial straps just to get the license. So you can bet that they're going to recoup that money for each of those licenses, 5 of them, all big number licenses, and their licenses in duplicate, both in the locality in which they originate and also from the state. So if you're a transport company, you got to get a license you got to get an ordinance passed in your local place, then get a license there and pay the fees associated with that, and then you can apply for your state license. You see, you can't even get the state license until you've spent money at the local theater, right? In your local municipality. And assuming they accept your application, you're going to lose that application fee, whatever it is. And then also there's a huge other application fee for the initiation of this licensing. And that, if they approve you, is non-refundable. So that's 2 licenses per license. You get your local license, your state license. There's 5 of those. So that's 10 different licenses that you're going to have to get the marijuana through, 10 expensive toll booths for the marijuana to pass through before it gets to the place that you're going to purchase it. And then it's going to have a 3% excise tax, and on top of that, a 6% sales tax. So I'm just wondering what kind of glittering gem is going to be sitting in the showcase window, probably in packaging which won't allow you to even see what it looks like or smell it or examine it in any other fashion. It's just, take our word for it, the processor says this is what's in there because it was tested and you paid for all of that. But you can't look at it because it's in a package where you can't see it, and you can't smell it because it's in a package you can't open until you've made the purchase. And on top of all of that, I don't even know if you're going to be able to identify what's in there anyways based on its name, because I don't know that these people are going to know what is what. They're going to have to gain an awful lot of information from caregivers in the state. I know that. And they better be prepared to pay those people handsomely for it. I'm just saying the people that are caregiving in Michigan that are going to be required for these people to run operations until the year 2021 for every one of those growers better band together into a union and fashion some rules about their unionization so that these large, deep-pocketed processors don't just steal your information at a cheap price under promise, stick, and carrot, and then throw you on your ear to the curb, because that's what's in the offering. That is what's coming down the pike in Michigan. We should be setting minimum employment standards in way of compensation packages for these talented and learned, skilled people. That's my pitch. This has happened in other places. This has happened in Oregon. It's happened in Washington. It's about to transform California when the election cycle goes through. There are going to be so many changes in this political process in the coming months that you won't notice this American landscape from before the election. So many things during this election cycle will have the words marijuana attached to it that you just won't recognize it as a presidential election cycle. That's usually what's there at the top. President, elect the president. Is it going to be Hillary or is it going to be Donald? I say it's President Marijuana. That's who's leading the campaign this year.
You're getting the full melt.
Your pets aren't just animals, they're members of your family. That's why we are excitedly wagging our tail about our hemp-based product that caters specifically to your best friend. Hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats, and really all kinds of pets. Hempwell drops are made from virgin, cold-pressed organic hemp oil. Our extraction process ensures the highest quality oil for your pet, with superior taste, smell, and nutrition. We hold ourselves to the highest standards, never using heat, chemicals, or preservatives in making our hemp oil products for pets. Pick up a bottle of Hempwell drops today at select retailers or online at hempwell.com. Hempwell. Hemp health for pets.
If you missed the last Full Melt show,
you missed a lot.
Yes, sir. We are just here to get you qualified, okay, for the lower interest rates.
This is a Visa card.
Okay. It's a Visa card, starts at 4, right?
So why do you need the numbers off the card?
I was going to let you know, like, what is your interest rate going to be and what you qualified for, okay?
Well, wouldn't it be a security risk if I was to give my card number over the phone?
Like, sure, we are the ones who send you the billing statement every month.
Aren't you really just a liar? Aren't you just lying about this? Aren't you just trying to steal my credit card number? Oh, you are, you little piece of shit. You're a little fucking liar, aren't you? You're a little foreign piece of shit, aren't you? You're a little foreign fucking puke, aren't you?
That's what you are. You fucking piece of shit.
Oh no! You get to suck my fucking. You get to suck my fucking American dick, you foreign piece of fucking shit. There you go. That's how you do that.
Imagine a world where patients can use marijuana like any other medicine. The Marijuana Patients Organization challenges the status quo by helping our neighbors to enjoy a better quality of life. Visit the MPO at marijuanapatients.org and enjoy informative articles, engaging debates, and information about treatments, doctors, and dispensaries in your area. Over 50,000 people have registered at marijuanapatients.org since 2010. Join us at the Marijuana Patients Organization today, marijuanapatients.org.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
Wish your skin could bounce back like it used to? Neutrogena Hydro Boost Water Gel instantly quenches skin to keep it supple and hydrated day after day. With hydrating hyaluronic acid, which retains up to 1,000 times its weight in water. This refreshing water gel plumps skin cells with intense hydration and locks it in. For supple, hydrated skin that bounces back. Hydro Boost from Neutrogena. See what's possible.
Tomorrow, no one does a season premiere like Modern Family with a wedding.
We look like the Three Amigos.
A funeral.
Just drop it. No.
And a scandal.
Oh my God, is this you naked?
What?
Modern Family premieres tomorrow on ABC.
It's the Full Melt radio show. Hey, you know what today's hashtag is? Today's hashtag is All Skittles Matter. I don't know. Did you see the thing about Trump saying that, he's comparing, hey, if I had a bowl full of Skittles and 3 of them would kill you, would you grab a handful? Try to compare. He says that's our problem with the immigration in this country, because it's a leaky border and we could let a terrorist in. All Skittles matter there, Mr. Trump. I was talking earlier about this trend, this marketing trend, this licensing trend that is really taking shape across the country, building what is to come big marijuana, building what is to come the Marlboro of marijuana in the future. Story today on this, really a blog from Hillary Bricken at AboveTheLaw.com. Hillary, I believe, is an attorney. And a damn fine-looking one at that. She posted this yesterday at 4:20 p.m. Go figure. Dateline, Denver. State-sanctioned medical marijuana operational licenses are increasingly becoming a pay-to-play greatest barrier to entry model. In this sort of system, there's usually some combination of the following, all geared towards minimizing the number of licensed cannabis businesses and towards making sure all of those who get such licenses are very well funded. A difficult and time-consuming license application process, high application fees, an unreasonably short application window, and high minimum funding requirements. No pun intended. To varying extents, Florida, Illinois, New York, Hawaii, Minnesota, and Nevada all have this sort of legalization regime. And, just for an example, in this article, Hillary gives those different states. In Florida, only 5 agricultural nurseries that have been in existence for at least the last 30 years were even eligible to be licensed as dispensing organizations under the state's extremely limited medical marijuana program. From the few nurseries that qualified, the state prioritized financials in its scoring process and required all the nurseries to post a $5 million performance bond. There you go. Strike one. In addition to that, or at least in other words, if you weren't a large and well-funded nursery that's been around for 30 years plus, forget about it. These 5 nurseries have nearly unfettered access to Florida's population of 20 million people, and there's a chance these 5 nurseries could end up being the sole providers of medical cannabis under Florida's impending medical marijuana ballot initiative. In Illinois, it's allowing only 21 cultivation centers and 60 dispensaries to serve all 13 million people in the state. Illinois set up a point system for judging cannabis licensing applicants based on their proposed security plans, their expertise in growing marijuana, and their plans for patient education. Imagine this. You go in Illinois from a place where growing cannabis is a felony to a place after you've done this very expensive licensing. Pardon me for a second. Oh, boy. To a place where you've gone through this very expensive licensing, and now, instead of being a felon, you need to brag about how well you can grow marijuana. Your marijuana growing experience is right there front and center of the application there in Illinois. Tell us of your great abundant experience in growing marijuana, because we're going to score you on it. And if you fail at this test, we may just have to deny your license. Get this, because this is what's coming here in Michigan. Betcha. You watch. We watch how they create these rules as they're promulgated in the coming 6 or 8 months. Cultivation centers were required to pay $200,000 for initial licensing and have at least $500,000 in liquid assets, in addition to a non-refundable $25,000 application fee. Dispensaries were required to pay $30,000 for a license and have $400,000 in liquid assets, in addition to a non-refundable $5,000 application fee. In New York, startup costs for running a medical cannabis company there estimated at around $25 million. The state required a $10,000 non-refundable application fee plus a $200,000 refundable registration fee for each application. Are you adding this up? Those seeking a cannabis license also had to show they had the real estate necessary to produce cannabis or be able to post a $2 million bond. Only 5 operators are allowed to run up to 20 dispensaries there in New York. Throughout the state, and applicants had to produce a litany of documents for the state's Department of Health that described in detail the applicant's manufacturing process, transporting, distributing, sale, dispensing policies, or procedures. Not as exclusive as Florida, but that's 20 dispensaries for 20 million people. You get 1 million customers with your license. A million potential customers with your license there in glorious Illinois. In Hawaii, they kicked off their new marijuana legalization regime in grand style with 5-year residency requirement. So you had to live in Hawaii for 5 years. And that its MMJ companies be majority owned by Hawaiians. Hawaii has some of the toughest, most protectionist cannabis regulations and barriers to market entry in the country. It's set to have only 16 dispensaries in the state on all the islands. And business applicants also need to show $1 million for each license applied for and not less than $100,000 for each retail dispensing location, all of which had to be under the control of the applicant for no less than 90 days prior to the date of the application. Go look at that. There was also a $5,000 non-refundable application fee for each license. Applicants awarded with licenses had to pay $75,000 for each license within a week of approval. Dispensary licenses must also pay an annual renewal fee of $50,000. Over there in Minnesota, way across the country, Minnesota has an extremely limited medical cannabis program. First, only 2 operators serve the entire state for cultivation. 2. Manufacturing and distribution controlled by them. The 2 operators each operate 4 dispensaries in the state, for a total of 8. The 2 operators were selected after the state reviewed their personal histories and capabilities with respect to cultivation, manufacturing, and patient services. These folks even had to commit to having a licensed pharmacist on staff to distribute the cannabis, which makes little sense since cannabis cannot be legally prescribed. And, of course, the state also assessed their financial stability and business plans. One of the operators, called it's Leafleen, reportedly raised $12.4 million in investment from 113 investors. Wow. All of this for a state that at the time claimed to have only 5,000 registered qualifying patients. I remember you're talking about little old Minnesota here. I mean, this is a farming state. It's an agricultural state. And it's Minnesota. You know, you can get some cheese there, buy some wheat, maybe a cow. you know, there are not a lot of great big cities in Minnesota. What do you got, Minneapolis, St. Paul? I mean, that's it. Nevada. In Nevada, running a marijuana business is running like is like running a casino. Of course. Wouldn't you think that the model they'd pick there wouldn't be alcohol, but gambling? It's capital intensive and only a few select people get to participate. Nevada requiring local control of its cannabis businesses, and as license applicants need to show no less than $250,000 in liquidity. They also had to produce volumes of documents showing detailed floor plans, security personnel manuals, and even advertising and marketing plans, all which were scored against a strict point system. In addition, the application fee was non-refundable, $5,000, and the license issuing fee per license, $30,000. All of the above states have created massive barriers to entering into their medical marijuana industries. On the flip side, though, all 4 states, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska, that legalized recreational marijuana do not have nearly the barriers to entry as these medical-only states. Though it makes sense for states to want to closely hew... Now, mind you, again, we're talking about Minnesota, 5,000 registered qualified patients, 2 guys serving 8 dispensaries with all that investment in place. You just tell me if this wasn't designed to fail. Wasn't it? Don't you think the program in Illinois, where there are only 7,000 qualified patients that are registered in the program right now, do you think those 7,000 patients are going to support those 20 dispensaries, those 20 grow facilities? Did you get that right in Illinois? How many dispensaries is it? Got to double check. 13 million people, 60 dispensaries. So 21 cultivation centers and 60 dispensaries. There are 7,000 registered patients there. Right now. Right now. I mean, do the math on that. It's really not rocket science. If you take 7,000 people and divide that by 60 dispensaries, I mean, really? What does that equal? It's 116 patients per dispensary. A little over that. We'll call it 117 patients per dispensary if you made it all round. Some of those might be 2 or 3 times that. You might have one dispensary with, 350 patients and one with none. They scatter these 60 dispensaries throughout the state. Who's driving way out in the country, except a few country people, to get their medical cannabis so they don't have to drive all the way to Chicago? There's going to be some people in Chicago hand over fisting it somewhere because they're going to have the most patients, but they're not going to be really profitable, I don't think, even with a few hundred. Or even with, let's just say in Chicago, let's just give it the benefit of the doubt, it's 80% of the marketplace. It's 80% of all registered patients live in Chicago. Even giving it that. So I don't know how many dispensaries plan to open or license in Chicago. But even given that, so 80% of 1,000 is 800. 800 times 7. It's 4,200 patients. 4,200 patients in Chicago. Given this huge, liberal padded figure, 4,200 patients. How is 4,200 patients supposed to support the number of patients necessary to just cover expenses, let alone make any profit from any of the dispensaries in Chicago? It's massive craziness is what it is. It is government regulation unbridled, unchecked. Now, the lady that wrote this article, again, her name is Hillary Bricken. Hillary goes on to say basically what most people in the cannabis community would have to say about this. These states have created massive barriers to entering into their medical marijuana programs, and the states that legalized it, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, Alaska, haven't nearly the barriers in place like the medical states do. And though it makes sense for states who want to closely hew the priorities set forth in the 2013 Cole memo, setting up ridiculously difficult requirements for licensing eligibility prioritizes the high profits of a few over industry efficiency, true competition, and patient consumer rights. The medical marijuana states have set up uneven playing fields that give the already wealthy near monopoly power over medical cannabis. So this is the question she poses. How is this a good system for anyone but the few who have bestowed with the spoils? I can only hope that Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and Alaska will eventually serve as models in showing how letting the marketplace choose cannabis winners and losers is preferable to patronage systems with high barriers to licensing. So far, these recreational legal states are proving that market entry and equality and the priorities set forth in the Cole memo can be squared. And just so you know, Hillary Bricken is an attorney. She's at Harris Moore, PLLC in Seattle. And, I think she's right on target with all of this. So I wanted to bring that up because, and just kind of go over that article a little bit with you, because it is on par with what I've been talking about here on this show for the past few episodes, and probably will have more to talk about in the coming future. Because it's really important to follow this and understand it from this perspective. At least from the perspective that one day in the future, even if you're not a medical cannabis patient, wherever you may be listening, and even if you don't use cannabis or haven't ever used cannabis in any way in the past, which would make you a rather small member of the population as a whole, you'd be in the very small percentile, like 12%, that's claimed to never have used pot. Sometime, at some point in life, even the ones who are strictly against cannabis of any form have at some point in their lives used cannabis. So if you're in that group, that 12% group in the nation's population, you have to be at least open-minded enough to consider that maybe when this shows up on store shelves, just like any other retail product, that maybe under some circumstance one day, you might be offered cannabis and choose to use it. And so you'll want to know where and why and how and the goods and the bads and the uglies of this right now.
You're getting the full melt.
Tomorrow, no one does a season premiere like Modern Family. With a wedding.
We look like the Three Amigos.
A funeral.
Just drop it. No.
And a scandal.
Oh my God, is this you naked?
What?
Modern Family premieres tomorrow on ABC.
Your pets aren't just animals, they're members of your family. That's why we are excitedly wagging our tail about our hemp-based product that caters specifically to your best friend. Hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats, and really all kinds of pets. Hemp oil drops are made from virgin, cold-pressed organic hemp oil. Our extraction process ensures the highest quality oil for your pet, with superior taste, smell, and nutrition. We hold ourselves to the highest standards, never using heat, chemicals, or preservatives in making our hemp oil products for pets. Pick up a bottle of Hempwell drops today at select retailers or online at hempwell.com. Hempwell, hemp health for pets.
Attention. Get ready to write down a very important number.
Michael does not know how to fail. Second place is loser.
If you have a medical marijuana case and need legal representation, call the best, attorney Michael Comorn.
He's very passionate in the courtroom.
Getting the best outcome requires quick legal action, and it needs to start with one call, toll-free to attorney Michael Comorn. 800-656-3557. Write it down, 800-656-3557.
Michael Comorn gave us our life back.
Attorney Michael Comorn. Vigorous criminal defense.
Ram trucks are reaching new heights when it comes to capability and efficiency. The Ram Heavy Duty is the most capable full-size pickup on the road today. And the Ram 1500 is the most fuel-efficient full-size pickup ever. So what does that mean? It means Ram trucks are built for the long haul. Ram, America's longest-lasting pickups.
RootMetrics, in the nation's largest independent study, tested wireless performance across the country. Verizon won big with 153 state wins. AT&T got 38, Sprint got 2, and T-Mobile got 0. Verizon also won first in the U.S. for data, call speed, and reliability. AT&T got text. Stuck on an average network? Join Verizon, and we'll cover your cost to switch.
Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki.
Sacred Elements.
Raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Dorr Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570.
Play-Doh Compound can help kids practice communication skills. Start by presenting the visual of the letter or word. Then ask them to mold the Play-Doh compound into the shape of the letters. It's an effective way to foster speech and even writing.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience, bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Dorr Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
My name is Kubo.
When people say Kubo, they're talking about the best animated movie of the year.
Whoa, show off.
Kubo is captivating.
You got my attention.
Kubo is charming.
Don't even. Grumpy monkey.
Kubo is an unforgettable adventure that will delight fans of all ages.
Like me?
Yes! Oh boy.
Kubo in theaters and Real D3D. Rated PG.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. All my friends
marching forth here on the Full Melt Show. More stuff happening in the world of marijuana. Amongst the stories today, the top 10 stories, can marijuana really reduce pot bellies and obesity? You can find that in Forbes. I can tell you this. If you're doing medibles and you're just doing a little bit of cannabis in a big piece of medible and you need it a lot, that you're probably not reducing pot bellies and obesity that way. Protecting Nevada's Children, a campaign against Nevada's marijuana legalization, has the big name guys, big name people behind it all. This according to The Cannabist at thecannabist.co. Big name support. Who is it? Let's find out. A formal campaign against legalizing recreational marijuana. This is against it. In Nevada, launched on Friday with the support of heavy hitters, including Governor Brian Sandoval and the organization that represents Nevada's casino industry. Oh, really? The casino guys? Now, why would they be opposed to cannabis? The group called Protecting Nevada's Children. Really? So the gambling guys are all about protecting the kids, right? We're supposed to believe them. Went live with the Slick website, its first major push against Question 2, which will appear on that November ballot. Another campaign supporting the measure has been active for months. Nevada's future success depends on a better education system and a well-prepared workforce, said Republican former Nevada Assemblyman Pat Hickey, the campaign's spokesman. Commercializing marijuana and trying to turn the Vegas Strip into the Amsterdam of the West will harm both efforts, he says. Really? What a funny picture you paint. The Amsterdam of the Midwest. We're going to change Vegas into the Amsterdam of the Midwest because we opened some pot shops amongst all those long-established, big flashing, lighted casinos, right? Officials declined to name their financial backers, stating that information would come out in mid-October when state campaign finances are required to be disclosed. Top elected Republicans voiced... Now, imagine that. Wait. No. So there's a guy on a hill yelling, "Hey, don't turn the Vegas Strip into the pot strip. Don't do it." And everybody's like, "Who are you?" And he's like, "I'm going to hide behind the hill again." I will tell you in October who I am. When we're required to do that. Top elected Republicans voiced their opposition to the pot measure, and several called Colorado's recreational marijuana law a failed experiment. Opponents include Nevada Attorney General Adam Laxalt, also Lieutenant Governor Mark Hutchinson, Reps Joe Heck, Mark Omidai, and Crescent Hardy, and Senator Dean Heller. Not that you'd know who they were. As a father and grandfather, I've always been fearful of both the immediate and long-term effects of recreational marijuana usage, Heller said. Oh, really? Unlike medical marijuana, I have serious concerns on whether or not the benefits of recreational marijuana outweigh the drawbacks. I still got that frying egg in the pan. This is your brain on drugs, he says. That's what he's saying between the lines. Shh, this is your brain on drugs. Any questions? Well, yeah. What happens now when we do retail cannabis? What happens now? Well, you can look in Colorado. Nothing really happened except they got a lot more money and a lot fewer people in jail, which I think is the overall goal here, right? I mean, that is the driving force behind marijuana legalization of any form, is to take people out of jail so you save a lot of money there at the state level, make more tax money. That's the game being waged. As a father and grandfather, unlike medical marijuana, he's got concerns. Democrats are more split on the issue. Tennessee Democratic lawmakers offered early endorsements of the recreational marijuana question in June, but Senator Harry Reid said last month that he was dubious about the measure. Representative Dina Titus said Friday that she's undecided and still researching its implications. I mean, this is, Senator Harry Reid. He's in control of the Senate. Senate candidate Catherine Cortez Masto told the Las Vegas Sun on Thursday that she'd vote no on the measure, citing concerns about the lack of banking systems for the industry and the conflict it would create between the state and federal laws. Oh, like you haven't figured out how to jump on the bandwagon yet to change all of that, right? Yeah, it's a big problem. But the answer isn't don't climb on the marijuana bandwagon. The answer is fix the taxation bandwagon. Fix the banking bandwagon. That's the answer. Tell Senator Reid, they're in the Senate, to back a bill that would adjust banking so that there is no conflict between state and federal laws. Because if the federal government wants to continue to exist and make any money from this marketplace, they're going to need to take the tax money from these states and allow reasonable efforts for them to do so. In other words, they're going to have to allow them to write their business expenses off like any other business. How are you going to go to these guys that have these deep pockets with these big fat bank accounts and all this bonding and all this property and all this liquidity and then licensing? How are you going to tell those guys that you've got to give, that they have to give you 90% of what they made after doing all that? I think that is going to go over like a fart in church. The casino industry lobby, which registered its opposition on Friday, noted that state gambling regulators who are strict about offering up casino licenses are wary of those businesses getting involved in the recreational pot industry. So this is another red herring, isn't it? Are wary of those businesses getting involved in the recreational pot business. They're worried that state gambling regulators, who are very strict about their licensing of the casinos, are worried that these businesses are going to get involved in the recreational. Why? Why are you worried? They're already involved in the alcohol industry. And they're also, here's the deal. See, if you're using cannabis, either just as an adult who chooses to use cannabis or a medical patient using cannabis, if you're in a casino, generally cannabis isn't going to be a substance that is going to cause you to make bad decisions. It is not the case, however, with alcohol. Alcohol will put you in a place where you'll spend the money that's in your pocket despite the fact that you don't have it to spend. And so this is why people like Sheldon Adelson in the state of Florida took $5 million of his own pocket purse money from his casino gambling holdings in Florida and pitched it in towards the anti-legalization campaign there. He railed that much money against the medical marijuana market there because he doesn't want marijuana taking over people's choices and availability in recreation in his casinos, because marijuana, again, will not cause people to make bad financial decisions. Alcohol will. And so this is why gambling establishments have always been laden in alcohol, because it is the feeder of the cash till, both in way of sales and in way of gambling revenue. So alcohol sales, cash in. Gambling sales, revenue, cash in. If people come in and they already got their medical cannabis or their recreational cannabis and they go dashing into the casino, they may only spend the $20 or $30 or $50 or $100 or $200 that they planned on spending. You see, that's the deal. They've spent their lives believing that marijuana needs to be illegal and cannot grasp that a majority of the Americans and a majority of Nevadans no longer do. Yeah, it's going to be a fiery storm come November. Get your ballot box ready and get your hanging chads off the ballots.
You're getting the full melt.
Promotional consideration provided by NoSmell.com, pioneering the storage market for cannabis users. The NoSmell patented bag technology offers users 100% smell-proof detection from even the most sophisticated of noses. NoSmell.com, so nobody knows. When placing your order for a NoSmell bag, make sure to use discount code FULLMELT and take 10% off the entire order. Learn more about NoSmell technology at NoSmell.com. If you missed the last Full Melt show,
you missed a lot.
All right, so there's this idiot reporter out in Grand Rapids today. I saw her on a promo for some show she's doing about kids and drugs, and she's interviewing a policewoman and a prosecutor. Check this out.
Things sound like something that like drug addicts would use. Are regular teenagers using butane?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, when you are out there, you're seeing kids are you seeing it younger and younger? Are you seeing it used in homes more frequently? What's actually happening?
Okay, that's a stupid question, you old bat. Can you come up with an original reporter's question, one that somebody can actually answer?
Is it addictive? Is it something that's going to get a kid in trouble? Can people manage their use?
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest myths.
Again, I just have to take issue with this. Wood TV in Grand Rapids, this lady needs to study up before she sticks a microphone in an official's face and asks an idiot question. When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you. Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience, bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
My moderate to severe chronic plaque psoriasis made a simple trip to the grocery store anything but simple. So I had an important conversation with my dermatologist about Humira. He explained that Humira works inside my body to target and help block a specific source of inflammation that contributes to my symptoms. In clinical trials, most adults taking Humira were clear or almost clear, and many saw 75% and even 90% clearance in just 4 months.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections, including tuberculosis. Serious, sometimes fatal infections and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Before treatment, get tested for TB. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, are prone to infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Ask about Humira, the #1 prescribed biologic by dermatologists. Clearer skin is possible.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Last night I fell apart, broke from my swollen heart, born in a simple time, raised with the simple mind. You may be a natural woman.
All right, so did you see this story today? This was not in the top 10 stories that Google puts out every day about marijuana. I think it's funny, it's interesting that it does that anyways. But there is a whole new thing going on here in Canada, accepting requests for cannabis oil imports. I mean, this is a big story. It came out September 15th, so I don't know how I missed it, and I don't know how this didn't get on. Maybe because it's a Canadian story. I don't know. Health Canada accepting requests for cannabis oil imports. The agency says they're requesting from individuals to import controlled substances like cannabis oil, including Charlotte's Web. Health Canada confirming that they're accepting those requests from individuals to import Charlotte's Web and other cannabis oil if the Minister of Health deems it necessary for medical or scientific purposes or it is otherwise in the public interest. Charlotte's Web, high CBD cannabis oil produced in the U.S., was in the news of Canada earlier this year when a shipment from the U.S. was stopped at the border. The product was destined for 4-year-old Kyla Williams, whose grandmother Elaine had been helping her access the imported oil for several years. It's been technically illegal to ship the product into Canada, but many Canadians, often caring for young children suffering from rare medical conditions like Dravet syndrome, have been accessing the American-made product for years. And so Charlotte's Web has become one of the more well-known high CBD oils available around the world, largely due to it being featured in media like Sanjay Gupta, who's been on this show, a CNN special on the subject called Weed. The genetics likely to come from a previously existing strain simply named R4, and the oil is reported to have a level of THC at or below 0.5%, so it's less than 0.5% THC, and its CBD ratio is 17%. So technically, in the United States, it qualifies as hemp. While other oils with similar levels of CBD exist on the market, including in Canada via regulated licensed producers as well as the thriving gray market, options are currently limited, and parents who have found success with a specific brand like Charlotte's Web are hesitant to experiment with a completely new approach, even if it's meant taking on the risk of shipping something illegally over the border. Those interested in finding out more can contact Health Canada directly. So I imagine that is going to fuel huge efforts here in the States to make sure that those medical patients in Canada indeed get the benefits of what we here in America have managed to derive from the cannabis plant via crossbreeding. I can tell you that I had a strain here that I was growing for patients here in Michigan. It is catatonic number 4. Catatonic number 4 is the strain. And that tested at like 3%. Something, I think it was somewhere between 3 and 5%. THC. It might have been less than 3%, if I remember correctly. It wasn't technically hemp. It was still cannabis because it was above 1% or above, yeah. This Charlotte's Web is 0.5%. So if it's less than 1% in the States, it's considered hemp. And I have a friend that I that have access to those genetics, who managed to crossbreed it with a hemp version that was auto-flowering. So it's auto-flowering hemp that is very rich in CBD and very low in THC. And I imagine there's going to be a huge demand now for producers like him and others to fill this demand for imports into Canada. I wonder what the United States government has to say about that conundrum. Because the guys checking you going across the border are the Canadian police as you go in, right? As you're going into Canada, that's who's checking you going in. Now, when you're coming back into the States, it's the U.S. Customs that's checking you out. It's the Border Patrol checking you out. And so going into Canada, your only opposition would be Canadian Border Patrol, Canadian Customs authorities. And so you'd have to get through the border with that material, and they're questioning. Now, if you've got something from the health minister that says there's an exception to the import rule, getting across the border to Canada with CBD oil or cannabis oil in general doesn't seem to be a big deal. It's only a big deal if you don't have that approval from the health minister, who seems willingly open to provide such permission, provide such an exception. So I find it even more interesting because there's been two other recent Canadian stories. One that they're legalizing cannabis in Canada altogether. That's the Prime Minister. Is it Trudeau? No. Who's the Prime Minister of Canada? I think it is Trudeau. Who's the? I got to figure it out. See, now I'm just failing. Memory's failing. I'm just gonna. Who is the Prime Minister of Canada? See, he was just reelected. Canada. It helps if you spell Canada properly. It is Trudeau, Justin Trudeau. Just didn't want to screw that up. For some reason, I'm thinking, oh, that's an old name. No, it's a new name. Justin Trudeau, part of the platform there in Canada, that story was legalizing cannabis there. Just legalizing it. That was the big party platform, and I'm pretty sure that was the platform that got him elected. And now they're in the process of making that happen. So that's the one story. The other story was this one that just came out about, importing cannabis into Canada in the form of oil through permission with the health ministry. And there was a third story, too. What was the third story? There was something else about Canada. It wasn't the border. It wasn't legalization. Boy, it's escaping me now. There was another story in Canada. But it's interesting that you can connect the dots on this. Oh, I know what it was. It was the federal. Canada was blasting the U.S. government for its policies about interstate trafficking of cannabis. They were railing against U.S. government policy. They openly called for the U.S. government to change its policy as being ridiculous. And it is. And as long as this policy remains in place, it will be ridiculous. I don't think it's going to stand the test of time much farther beyond the election. Unless you get that guy that thinks that, 3 Skittles can kill you. Mr. Trump. Oh, boy. What a mess. I wish I could pull out the crystal ball and tell you right now. Well, in fact, I kind of can. I'm pretty sure that my crystal ball says Mr. Trump's not getting in there and Hillary's going to be president, and then we're going to reschedule cannabis and the election's going to change the whole face of what's going on, and we can do relations with Canada. Oh, it's a rosy future.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.